Hey, book lovers. Want to hear a story? Welcome back to Storytime with Em. This is a mini episode from Em's Books and Cats podcast, where I am sharing my book, SuperGym, a chapter or sometimes two a week. And this week is Chapter 5. Enjoy. Thor liked to run. Everything was better when he was running. Screaming guitars and incessant drums were the only things that could drown out his thoughts. Everything was fine in the daytime. When he was training a client, pain was his only focus. No thinking, just sweat and progress. He knew he had done his job well when they screamed and crumpled into a sweaty, writhing ball. Mr. Pratt would be pleased, and that was Thor's main objective. It was the goal of every trainer. Benjamin Pratt had saved them all, and they owed him their lives. At night, when the job was done, things went bad. His mind filled with dark clouds and screams. There were no clear thoughts, no discernible memories. But he knew those screams. Their sounds sent pain shooting through his head like a bolt of lightning. The first time it happened, he collapsed in his apartment. He was screaming and tearing at the short, dark bristles of his hair. One by one, he ripped them from his scalp, and little rivulets of blood ran down his face. Mr. Pratt found him. Mr. Pratt saved him. His hand reached into the pocket of his pristine white suit and removed a syringe filled with an iridescent green goo. Thor had tried to fight him. Darkness enveloped him, and the screaming wouldn't stop. He wasn't certain whose voice it was now. It couldn't be his own. It was too high and mad to be his. He couldn't see anything. Just the glowing green that looked like death dressed as a party favor. Mr. Pratt put down the syringe and wrestled Thor onto the bed. There were others in the room. Thor couldn't see them, but he knew they were there. He felt their hands holding him down, and he fought harder. Heavy leather straps were pulled tight across his chest. Every bed was equipped with them. Thor had been the one to pull them tight against many writhing bodies. He fought harder against the tightening straps. He was trapped. Mr. Pratt stood beside the bed and held the needle aloft. Thor let out one last piercing scream before his voice cracked and gave out completely. There was still only darkness and the glowing green. He saw it rise, and Mr. Pratt brought it down and plunged it deep into Thor's left thigh. Instant relief followed. The green light filled him, and warmth flowed through his body. The screaming stopped. The darkness was no more. He slipped away into a deep and peaceful sleep and woke refreshed the next morning. Thor stepped into his apartment and removed his earbuds. The shimmer started almost immediately. He sprinted up the stairs 2 at a time and snatched up the small metal box that sat beside his bed. The pre-filled syringes lay inside on a bed of black velvet. He plunged one deep into his pectoral muscle. A cool, liquid feeling flowed through his body. His muscles relaxed. His heartbeat slowed. The shimmer dissipated, and he sighed. As his eyelids began to droop, he staggered clumsily to the bed and sat down heavily. His body seemed to weigh a ton, like the fatties he saw every day at the SuperGym. He slowly removed his sneakers. His fingers fumbled with the laces as his hands seemed to swell and grow fat. The room began to swing violently from side to side, and he fell back. His head missed the thin, flat pillow, but Thor was already fast asleep. Someone was pounding on the door. Thor woke slowly. He felt his consciousness swimming up from a dark and very deep place. He raised a hand and massaged his face. The hand was back to its normal size, and he squeezed his forehead between his thumb and forefinger. There was a dull, thudding sensation at his temples, but no pain, no shimmer. Thor sat up and listened. Nothing. Just the wind in the trees. He waited. He was about to lay down when the knocking started again. It was strangely rhythmic and relentless. He sighed and slowly swung his legs over the edge of the bed and stood up. He stretched his muscular body, and tiny sparks of light danced in front of his eyes. Not the shimmer, but close. He plodded down the stairs. The metal was cold beneath his bare feet. In the stark white glare of the security lights, he saw Maggie. She was beating on the door steadily, one fist and then the other. Her hair and clothes were completely soaked in blood. Her wide eyes stared out of the gore, and they were black. When she saw him through the window, she stopped knocking. Her skin slid away to reveal a white, grinning skull. She opened her ghastly mouth to scream, and a snake as black as her eyes slithered out. Thor woke up covered in a cold sweat. His heart raced, and he gripped the sheet tightly in his fists. A dream. It was just a dream. The sky was beginning to turn from deep midnight blue to the lighter shade of dawn. The sun was coming, and daytime was safe. He was safe. Thor padded into the bathroom and stood for a long time in front of the mirror. He considered his muscles and noted the ones that needed extra attention. He pinched the flesh at his abdomen and shook his head. Not quite perfect. Never perfect. He showered, pounded a protein shake, and popped in his earbuds. The lingering unease of his dream was gone with the crash of a cymbal. He stepped outside and started to run. He would have to hustle. He was taking the longer route to the SuperGym. He couldn't let his carefully sculpted abs vanish under a layer of flab. It was a constant battle, one he could not lose. He was Thor, a trainer, an ideal. He was close to perfection. And that is the end of Chapter 5, Book Lovers. I hope you're still enjoying SuperGym. Make sure to come back next week for another chapter. Until then, keep reading.